Definitely. And just kind of to switch gears, I want to switch gears to more of talking about the current situation of our team, um,
Okay.
away from stadium talk. So, Chargers were 4-12 last season. Where do you see the improvement this season? There's a lot of areas I think we could touch on, but maybe let's pick one important one that you've seen so far.
Well, I like that we're building early leads. We need to be able to hold on to them, obviously, but we're coming out. Look, the one thing I will say is much better than last year, and it's a weird one because I have mixed feelings about Mike McCoy. I know some people, I've been on the fire Mike McCoy train before, but at the same time, he's putting the team in positions to come up with these big leads. And with as many injuries as that we have, the fact that we're played as well as we are, I know we're not winning as many games as we should, but the fact that we're in these games is just amazing with all the injuries. So I do like that. I think compared to last year, our offense was as milk toast as it could be. And I think this year we're showing some creativity. Um, some things that I wish that they would go back and do is I just went back and rewatched the Atlanta game, and Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa were lined up next to each other all over the place, and they were like this chaotic, insane force. And it's like Pagano was like, yeah, that was really cool when I did that a couple weeks ago, but I don't know why I'm not doing it now. I just can't understand why he's not lining them up next to each other and doing all this kind of creative stuff with them. And I think that can sometimes be a problem with this team is that you know look, I mean, everybody talks about the Denver defense as like one of the best, but if you look at the first Denver game, we had two of the longest drives of the year in the NFL against the Denver defense, the first two drives of that Thursday night game. And the reason why is because we were throwing the kitchen sink at them with all kinds of creativity and all kinds of interesting blitz package or interesting offensive alignments and just Hunter Henry at fullback, and then all of a sudden, just all kinds of crazy stuff. And I just wish we'd do more of that. But at the same time, I understand it's kind of hard to do when you have as many injuries as we do.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that little span there with the Denver game in Atlanta was one where it's a span that really surprised me, being that we had to really find ourselves after all those tragic losses in the previous games.
Lamb, like McCoy being on the hot seat too a little bit, kind of puts emergency for him and the staff to really, flex their juices a little bit, not be too complacent with their calling and everything.
And if that's what it takes, put light a fire under their ass, I guess. But I do think the problem with this organization sometimes is that you know there's things that we like about how we like the loyalty when Dean's showing it to us as a city. But if you're showing too much loyalty to, I know it's confusing for fans because you have like, I just went back and watched a game from 2006 with Marty Schottenheimer, and here's a guy who was 14-2, and we fired him, and then 4-12, Mike McCoy survives. I know it's very confusing and hard for people to watch, but from the outside, and there's a lot of anger and vitriol. And I'm going to put my Saber Bolts hat back on for a second and say, like, remember that the people that run this team are human beings, and a lot of times, they're not just looking at it as X's and O's like we are sometimes. And I do think that sometimes they're thinking about things like I think it's impossible for them not to think of John Pagano, for example, as family. He's been with this team for over a decade, right? So there's a degree that I think my perception of the Chargers has changed a lot since I started doing Save Our Bolt, partially because um, you know before, as a Charger fan, Dean Spanos wasn't a guy who looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and said thank you to me. That's just something I never thought was going to happen. For example, right? So now he's different to me. He's a human being. And for example, the closer I've gotten to the team, uh, I've seen these guys walking around the facility when I've been visiting, for different things, for meetings. And I've, spent time talking to them at events and, campaign events. And so there's just a degree that I see them differently as human beings. And the one thing that I would say that I think not everyone says when they're talking about the team is to remember for a minute that these guys are human beings. And as hard as it was for us to get up to just deal with the unbelievable insanity of the two fumbles, for example, in the New Orleans game, they had to come back and play a game, you know, and they had to come back from these losses and try to rebuild a season. And so, I handed to our players. I was frustrated like everybody else with Philip Rivers for throwing 4 interceptions against the Dolphins. But he's also led 24 game-winning drives in his career that I've gotten to watch all of. And, he's taken me through that. So, and look, I'm doing this interview with a stuffed nose because I care about the Chargers, but, that adds I'm here partially because, I care about the team. And so I don't know, you guys know because I told you beforehand that I was really sick this week, but we don't know what's going through the minds of all these players every week before they play. We sometimes find out later, for example, before the Atlanta game, that Denzel Perryman was playing hurt.
Or that Jason Verrett played 2.5 weeks with a partially torn ACL.
That's pretty
After
crazy.
injuring against the Colts, and then he just toughed it out and was going out there
And
in front of the media,
remember-
taking responsibility on himself for losses, and he was
Yeah,
on
he took
1.5 legs right
responsibility
there.
for that Colts loss, and little did we know that he had an injury that he probably should have not been playing at all. Right. And I think that when we're talking about the Chargers, whether it's uh, whether we're talking about the things that happen behind the scenes in the office for the future, for our stadium, for all these things, whether we're talking about the game, I guess one thing that I've learned from this whole process is to remember that these are people. I've seen a lot of vitriol thrown at Dean for saying like, why hasn't he made a commitment to stay in San Diego? Why hasn't he done that? And I say, I would like him to do that too. But remember, he got his ass kicked in Houston for that Houston vote. Uh, I'm not saying that he didn't want to go to Carson because I think that there was he put forward a plan, and he might have really wanted to have gone to Carson, and he got his ass kicked. And whether he came back to San Diego. Now, a lot of people could say, like, he knew that plan in Carson wasn't good enough to compete with the Inglewood plan. And I think it's pretty reasonable to say that he was putting forward that plan to make sure that the NFL gave him the money that they eventually did. I'm not so sure he wanted that vote to succeed with Carson. Okay, so let me be clear on that. But he got his ass kicked there. Measure C, if people believe that he got his ass kicked, he did. So either way, these are tough losses on top of the fact that his team is fumbling away games, that they're losing in a historically weird fashions. He is as emotionally tied to this team as us, probably more so. People will say all the time, well, like, Dean doesn't care like I do, otherwise he'd make changes. Don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. I assure you that the guy gives a shit, okay? And I guess what I've kind of learned through this process, and I don't mean to come off sounding like Dean apologist here, because certainly I'm still mad at him for firing Marty, um, you know, uh, and and I've actually joked at a meeting. I did joke with him about how I was still mad about him firing Marty, and he did chuckle about it, and he said, I know I'll never live that down." And uh, but the reality is that I just, kind of my message to Charger fans is to remember that these are people, and we love the team, and we obviously we bleed blue and gold, and Sundays are much easier for all of us when we win, and I get that, but I just learned a great deal about what it means to be the human being at the center of this storm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. And I think that's a good spot to kind of close there, Curtis, on like a little bring it full circle. Just like
Yeah.
keeping it in Charger fans' minds that we hoist these guys up on their pedestals, but they're still men at work. Like these are their jobs, all the way from Dean as a businessman, all the way down to the players. Like Monday through Sunday, this is their job, and this is what they go, and this is what they work for.
Yeah, and and that's part of it is that and I think that they understand. I think what one of the things we're dealing with right now is that we only have two players on the roster, Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates, who really understand the relationship between this city and the team, because it's been so fractured. Like, you don't come as a Melvin Gordon and instantly fall in love with the fan base, because the fan base is so weird right now, because
Yeah.
we don't know if they're coming or going, and so right now is a time, I think, to really, as you asked what we could do. Here, I'll give you another thing that we can do as a good way to close this out. Another good thing that we can do as fans is really reach out and embrace the young players right now, and as San Diego, and say, like, you're a part of our community. We love you guys. Chant for, we should be chanting for Gordon when he gets the ball in the end zone or the red zone. We should be connecting with these younger players, because we want them to want to stay in San Diego, and they won't understand that if we don't build that connection as a fan base.
Yeah, even if with the whole Joey Bosa situation over the holdout, like Charger Nation spoke up and came out, and you saw
Mhm.
that his parents, his former agent, did not like this fan base, and Joey's shown up on the field. He's putting his work coming in, and he should be the defensive rookie of the year in my opinion right now. I don't see a younger guy playing better than him, and I think he's going to be a top 3 pass rusher in this league one day. And I don't want to see him being a pass rusher in Seattle or in Arizona or New England.
No.
I want to see him staying here in San Diego. I don't want another Rodney Harrison situation. I want to see Joey lifting the Lombardi Trophy here instead of out in one of the other franchises that would gladly
Well,
take him as a rusher.
it's funny you should mention that, because at the Thursday night football game, uh, some of the people that worked the Measure C booth, we were sitting in the section of the queue where a lot of the players' wives and family were sitting, and we were walking out of the game with Joey Bosa's family, and we actually got a chance to talk to Joey Bosa's grandfather for quite a while as we were leaving, and I think they're starting to kind of kind of sort of start to like San Diego. So, um, but we did what we could to heal that bridge that night as we were walking out of the stadium. Of course, we were all just super excited. We won a game at that point.
I mean,
Uh,
I feel that
but
Joey.
I can tell you that as somebody who was sitting in that end zone and was very close to his family when he made the stop in the red zone on third down, in person, that looked insane. And I think, and there was a whole bunch of people that were sitting there that knew Joey Bosa's family was right there, and people were making a point to tell his family, like, what a beast and what a monster he was. And so I think they got the connection. So in a strange way, I can tell you that I got to experience that for one game at least. We got to try and make that connection with him and his family. So that was cool. That was really cool, actually, because it was one of those like neat moments that I've gotten in this campaign where like all of a sudden like we're walking out of the stadium talking to Joey Bosa's grandpa. It's kind of fun. So
That's super cool. Well, hey,
yeah,
David, I just want to thank you again for spending some time with us to talk about the Chargers and Measure C, and just giving real voice and a push for Charger fans on what they can do next and how they can get involved and what to look forward to.
yeah,
And to really understand that Dean is a human being, and the Chargers, every player is a human being, and they're dealing with the same pain, but even worse, being that they're the Warriors that go out there and do this. So I
yeah.
can't thank you
Because
enough
they
for
also they're hurting for the losses just as much as we are, and their
definitely.
bodies are sore from getting the shit beat out of them for 60 minutes.
Oh yeah,
So
oh
let's
yeah,
keep that in mind too. But
definitely.
hey, saveourbolts.org. There's going to be plenty of ways to get involved in the near future. Hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. We'll be letting people know. I think pretty soon we're going to be putting a push out there for people to write letters. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media.
All
So,
right, and David, did you want to make an announcement about any future things at a Chargers game?
oh yeah. Well, if you're going, if anybody out there listening is going to the Buccaneers game, we just found out that Saber Bolts and the Stadium Coalition is going to be recognized on the field for our volunteer efforts to save the team. Uh, we don't exactly know how that's going to look yet. We just know that we're going to be honored on the field. Um, don't know what that's going to look like yet. The Chargers are kind of keeping that secret at this point. We're really honored. It's really humbling that after years of watching this team and living and dying by what happens on Sunday, uh, to be honored on the field by the team is just it's mind blowing, and I'm super excited about it. Uh, um, but here's the thing. It was a lot of hard work, this campaign. There were a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of hard work, uh, you know, unbelievable amounts of volunteer hours. So, by all the people involved, all the people that are being honored. So, I really hope that if people are at the game, that not just for me, because there's going to be 25 of us out there, uh, but I hope people will cheer loud and proud for the fan groups that fought on their behalf to save the team.
Definitely. Hey, that's a really cool honor, and I think it's well deserved by the Save Our Bolts campaign. And I just want to thank you again, David, for spending the time with us to really talk deeply about this team and the future of this team in San Diego.
Hey, they're going to be our team forever. So,
San Diego, that's what's up.
yeah, we're going to do this, and it's everybody together. Uh, but those of us that started Save Our Bolts, none of us, well, most of us didn't have any experience to begin with, and so if anybody is out there is thinking that they want to get involved, there's time to get involved in the future. There's different ways to get involved. So keep us in mind.
Very cool.
Always.
Thank you for being on tonight. Very awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys, for checking out this interview. This has been Bolt Banter. Check us out on social media. And also, like David said, look forward to the Saber Bolts being recognized against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not this Sunday, next coming Sunday. Check it out.
Bolt up, San Diego.
Bolt up.